Ho ho buddies, welcome to Borderline Games. I'm Gareth and today we're playing Chaos Head. Last time we went to see a doctor to confront the idea that we're having we're doing things in our sleep. Basically, we were talking to Yua. Is that her name? I can't remember. We were talking to Yua, who was saying that we were messaging ourselves. So we were going to a doctor to prove her wrong, basically. We went there and he was like, hey, try and sleep down on one of these beds and then we'll monitor you. I don't even think they monitor you. I think they were just saying, sleep there, we'll check on you and see if you're sleepwalking. We sleepwalk. No, we don't. We go to sleep. Or we try to go to sleep. We have a delusion that the Sarah... Is that her name? Sierra? I'm not really sure how you pronounce that. But basically, we had a delusion where she appeared as a 3D girl, and then she proceeded to kiss Takumi, and then suck out all of his insides, and that was really gross and horrible. And then the delusion ended, and now we're going to see if something was a good thing or a bad thing. I can't remember what that was about. But that's it, basically. So it turns out that when we have a choice, when we have a delusion, we pick either green or red. Red is violent. Green, I've assumed, was, for better a word, horny. Well, I think it's horny and violent. So either way, you can't get rid of the violence. Anyway, let's carry on. But was that a good thing or a bad thing? I let out a sigh. That scene was just like the one in the dojin I'd bought from Circle Piri Puru. In other words, I'd had a delusion using it as a basis. Why hadn't I noticed that in my dream? Well, I knew that it was a dream because I hadn't noticed, but I couldn't help thinking that regardless. So it was just a dream. Nishi-Jua-san? A voice called to me from the other side of the curtain. The curtain quickly opened and the nurse from before, Hazuki-san, popped her head inside the room. Good morning. I bowed my head silently, keeping my eyes low. You ended up sleeping soundly for 3 hours. Huh? Had I really slept for 3 whole hours? I'd been so lost in my dream that I'd completely lost all sense of time. Then again, I was pretty exhausted. It sounded like you were having a bit of a bad dream. Is everything all right? Naturally, I couldn't help my borderline wet dream straight... I couldn't mention my... Oh, I see. Naturally, I couldn't mention my borderline wet dream straight to her face. Admitting to my maxed out libido stat would be pretty embarrassing. But ultimately, you showed no signs of sleepwalking. Azuki-san's reassuring voice conveyed that to me. Well, it's possible that symptoms didn't occur today by chance, so we can't definitely say that you haven't been sleepwalking. We can't say that you haven't been sleepwalking. No, I really don't think I'm a sleepwalker, so... More importantly, I had to ask the doctor that really important question. But I couldn't see him anywhere. As I looked around, Hazuki-san handed me a blank form. Not really focusing all that hard, I took it from her and ran my eyes over it. It was a fill-in-the-blank style form. It's a checklist to assess your mental condition. It functions more or less like a psychological test, and the doctor said that you can go home after filling it out. Where's the doctor? I'm very sorry. He's very busy with other patients right now. He said to see how things go until next week and to come again if there's no signs of improvement. Then again, it wasn't like he was my primary physician or anything. I suppose... or anything, I supposed. He'd probably just given Hazuki-san a bunch of directions to get me out of here. Well... Guess that means there was pretty much no point to me coming to the hospital today. I really wanted to ask Dr. Takashina about the someone that wasn't me controlling me. Whatever it meant, it was a really chilling symptom, so I didn't want to leave without getting an answer. That being said, I didn't have the courage to demand Hazuki-san bring him back to see me, especially when she already looked so apologetic. Reluctantly, I decided to give the test a try. I guess I'd write about my symptoms on the back of the sheet or something. If I did that, I should be able to get another examination scheduled for next week. The test is very simple. Each question you answer with either yes or no. If the question is applicable to you, please mark the box labelled yes. It will be used as a reference, so we can personalise your treatment going forward, so please consider your answers carefully. Hazuki-san went out of her way to explain the procedure thoroughly. The test had some strange questions mixed in, ones you wouldn't normally expect to run into at a hospital. It really did seem like some sort of psychological test. Would they really be able to actually learn something from questions like these? Hazuki-san stared at me intently. She showed no signs of leaving. But it wasn't like she was. It wasn't like she had nothing else to do or anything. It was more like she was monitoring. No, watching over me or something. My nervousness at being watched made it hard for me to think clearly. But I guess she was just doing her job. Either way, I knew I ought to fill out the test quickly. Okay. Oh. When you have business to take care of, you prefer to use emails over phone calls. Your ears ring every now and then. Yes. You have felt someone's gaze and turned around before. Yes. You have seen objects that are supposedly stationary move for an instant. Yeah. You've experienced a premonition. Yes. While looking at a digital clock in passing, you've seen the same numbers appear in sequence. Okay. You've already cried once this month. You can masturbate only. What are these questions? You can already. You've already cried once this month. Sure. Have we cried? You can masturbate using only your imagination. When masturbating, you can visualize. You feel like yawning when other people do. Merely the sight of sour food makes your mouth fill with saliva. You have a hard time making eye contact with people. You have experienced memory loss. You've been in a dream in which you knew you were dreaming. You've dreamed in colour before. You have a strong ability to sense the supernatural. You believe there is a god. Let's just see what happens if we just do all of these. The personality attributed to your astrological sign matches your personality perfectly. When you start reading a book, you become so immersed in it that you lose track of time. You cannot handle haunted houses. That's definitely me. You have a hard time going to the bathroom after watching a horror movie. You believe that other planets inhabited by human-like creatures exist. You can masturbate using only imagination. When masturbating, you can visualize uninterrupted imagery. You can daydream without closing your eyes. The frontal view of your car sometimes looks like a face. Alright. Thank you very much for your time. I'm not going to look at these really weird answers you've given. Hazuki-san thanked me as I answered the final question, despite the fact that I hadn't said anything. I felt pretty embarrassed at being watched the whole time. My face was probably bright red. Because of that, I avoided looking at Hazuki-san when I handed her the test. There had been no time to write my symptoms on the back. Now then, please go wait in the waiting room. We'll have your medication out to you in just a few minutes. Huh? But medication? They were prescribing me something. Dr. Takashina had never said anything about that. Yes, as per the doctor's orders. It's a weak sedative. You'll be able to sleep more soundly, and there aren't any side effects. Oh, wow. Thoughtful as ever, Dr. Takashina. And yet, when I realised I'd have to wait in the lobby again, my mood was immediately sent spiralling. Value of death. Life is suffering, caused by desire. To end the suffering, we must end desire. The contagious madness, the unchanging me. Power lines. Cool. I want to see that. By the time I'd gotten back to Shibuya, it was already evening. The hospital was technically in Shibuya Ward, but since Yoyogi was the closest station to it, commuting via train was the fastest. But the Yamanote line had been as crowded as ever, and despite only being two stops long, the trip back still made me incredibly tired. Riding the train any farther would have been a pain in the ass, so I decided to get off at Shibuya Station and make my way back to base from there. Even then, there were still tons of people outside the station. I despised crowds. They made my head spin. Not wanting to stay much longer, I tried to sleepwalk out of Scramble Crossing. But even walking straight was nigh impossible. Stumbling even slightly caused people from both behind me and in front to bump into me. What's more, a bunch of people handing out pocket tissue packs blocked the way, frantically forcing everyone who passed by to take them. Fed up with everything, I ignored the first person handing them out, but took some off the second because at least she was a cute girl. Grill. I was so sick and tired of these people handing out tissue packs and shit to push their products. Didn't they have anything better to do than stand right in the middle of the road? Well, whatever. It was free, so might as well take it. Inside the tissue pack I saw a red flyer, and there was a paragraph's worth of shit written on top of it with white ink. Talk about ostentatious, like holy shit. You couldn't exactly miss something with that colour scheme. As I walked along, I gave it a quick skim. Type B blood is in short supply. It was a blood donation flyer. As I read it, I thought back to the form I'd filled out in the hospital. I didn't have any memory of filling out something like that 4 years ago. Maybe the way they examined patients had changed recently. Even then though, something felt oddly familiar about that test. Deja vu. I've been getting hit by it all the time recently. Having my mind and body not function the way I wanted them to, the sense of dissonance was an incredibly uncomfortable feeling. So in order to ascertain the true cause behind the deja vu, I tried flipping back through the pages of my memories. I thought back to when Mum had taken me to the hospital about once a week. I'd kept my mouth shut at all times and only expressed myself via nodding or shaking my head. At first I'd been taken to a perfectly ordinary examination room, but since I showed no signs of improvement, I started going to a different room before long. The room had essentially been a counselling room, which meant it put the patient's relaxation first and foremost. In other words, there were sofas and plushies and whatnot located all throughout the room. Dr. Takashina had taken a very patient approach to treating me, all while refusing to blame my situation on anyone. He alone caught on to how I was merely choosing not to speak rather than having the inability to do so. Meanwhile, my mum would always talk to me in an unnaturally cheery voice. Every time I'd gone to the hospital, the doctor would always welcome me with a refreshing smile. The nurses also treated me with all the love and care they could. And I had a feeling that there had always been one more person in the room. Right. There'd been a man in a black suit. One that felt fairly out of place in a hospital. Weird. As I've been doing my best not to speak, I never asked about him. I didn't know who the hell he was the entire time he was there. He didn't feel like a doctor, and he always stood all alone a fair distance away from everyone else, all while gazing out the window. I had dubbed him Mr. Nozomi in my head, though that wasn't his actual name, or anything. Nozomi. The man in the suit always had a badge on his chest, no matter the situation. And on that badge was the word Nozomi. It had looked like a logo to me though, so it probably wasn't a name tag. Oh, I knew why it was bothering me now. That test from before also had the Nozomi logo printed on it. I had a hunch that I'd seen it somewhere before, and now I finally remembered exactly where. It was like a huge weight had been lifted off my chest. That aside, what was Nozomi anyway? I was pretty sure it was the name of a business. It could be a counter-terrorist organization founded by a gorgeous female CAO named Miss Nozomi. Just like a manga. Oh, home sweet home. More cramped than I remember. Delude. When I'd arrived at my base, I'd gone straight to look up Nozomi online. However, there were so many results that I couldn't manage to pin down anything specific. Is this delude because it's delusions? Well, let's go with a more normal theory first. That Nozomi guy could have been from the company that made the test, and he was just at the hospital in order to sell them or something. The hospital had then adopted the tests recently, and they decided to have me fill one out today. Nah, I doubted that. I never even heard of some rando attending a patient's examination like that. So who the hell was that Mr. Nozomi guy? Memories kept pulling at my mind, but I was fed up with it at that point. Either way, the reason behind my deja vu was now clear. I decided that I'd ask Dr. Takashina about my memory issues next week. But until then, I was going to stay cooped up in my room without bothering with school. There was no way in hell I'd go to school where people were trying to hurt me. In all honesty, I really didn't want to screw up the minimum attendance chart I'd so carefully constructed, but it wasn't worth getting myself killed over. I gave up on my Nozomi search and went to look for any interesting looking threads on that channel. New Gen News Bearer. Oh, the news board was almost completely filled with New Gen threads. Even the ESO board had threads like, let's try and replicate New Gen crimes in ESO, and to be honest, I was beyond sick and tired of the whole thing. Diving back into ESO, I found Grim. Alright. Neidhart. The at-channel news board is super fucking boring recently. They really won't shut the fuck up about New Gen. Well, it's the biggest thing of note recently. Whenever a new incident like this happens, people always freak the fuck out about it. Shitstorm incarnate. Lol. They still haven't caught the culprit. I mean, you and I both know the police are incompetent. Lol. There's tons of idiots all over the web painting the culprit as some mo hot chick. Lol. That demon girl. The desolate eyes of the girl I'd seen at the crucifixion murder scene flashed through my mind, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. As much as I didn't want to remember, that ghastly memory would come back at any time I let my guard down. Wait. I'd seen the culprit's face. I knew who they were. Should I report it to the police? But I didn't want to get involved. Demon girl? Is there already... Oh, hang on. What's going on? Is there already an offshoot of the perp like that? That might be taking it a bit too far, to be honest. Anyway, these New Gen cases are seriously interesting, dude. I've joined the Fripara New Gen community. Fripara? You're getting way too into this. Everyone but you and Sissom from our guild has joined. Oh god, was he serious? Now I wouldn't be able to hop on and chat with my guild anymore. Gives me the chills. I knew you were into gory stuff, Grim, but... Don't tell me you're the type that looks for artistic merit in murder cases. True, the crucifixion corpse would have easily been mistaken for modern art, so it'd be fair to say that it was artistic in some sense. Now, the only thing you should be seeking here is how lewd it is. It's like the ultimate form of BDSM. This guy's hopeless. Better do something quick. You'll get it once you leave behind your virginhood. Neidhartan. You lowly bastard. Are you saying you're not a virgin? You damn traitor. Pause. Nope. not that. What do I want? Tip list. Depicting a person on all fours on all fours depressed. O is the head, R is the arms and torso, and Z is the legs. Oh, I see. Nice. You traitor. Back on topic though, the site pooling all the info together is filled to the brim, so you really ought to take a look. I really don't want to look. I was scared to. I wanted to escape the reality in which I'd witnessed the scene of the crime. That's why I'd been intently avoiding all info related to New Gen ever since then. I wanted to fool myself into believing that the gruesome scene I'd seen had been just a delusion, but I was basically a god on ESO, not just someone strong, but someone who knew all. Not to mention I was the guild leader. It'd be beyond embarrassing if the organizer of the group couldn't keep up with the latest topics. I had to make sure that didn't happen. Here we go then. I clicked the link to the site Grim had sent me. Well, first I went to Delude. The top of the site had the title All Things New Gen written in big letters right in the center of the page. This type of website was basically like a wiki. It was open to the public and anyone could enter info related to a particular topic. In the case of this New Gen site, loads of people entered info concerning New Gen and the site updated as they did. Sites like it tended to suffer from unreliable info being mixed in, as well as its fair share of vandalism from trolls, but they could still be pretty useful for getting a quick overview of an incident. Many links were pasted all over the page. I promptly clicked on the link that read Current Timeline. My heart raced. Just reading the site was making me nervous. My palms were slick with sweat. The first incident, dubbed the group dive, was the suicide of 5 high schoolers that had jumped to their deaths. It had happened in the dead of night on September the 7th, which was about a month ago at this point. The building they jumped off of was the Cornelius Tower, which was located in Shibuya. They dove off the rooftop helipad. Of course, all 5 had died instantly. According to the autopsies, the 5 all had foreign pieces of flesh under their fingernails. Gross. Along with various scratch marks on their hands. Okay. So then why is it a suicide if they've clearly tried to resist? Based on that, it was surmised that the 5 had been holding hands. Oh, okay. As they jumped for one reason or another. There was no suicide note of any form on the rooftop. A person online, one of the people acting like Snake, had actually gone to Cornelius Tower and reported that the door to the roof had a sign on it saying no entry to unauthorized personnel, and that it was locked practically 24/7. Naturally, the door had been locked at the time of the incident, and the key was not found among the belongings of the deceased. Essentially, the rooftop helipad had effectively been a locked room, and the method the 5 had used to enter was completely unknown. There was a very high chance that someone other than the 5 had been present at the scene of the crime. Or incident. I'll take either. The second incident, dubbed the man-child murder case, had occurred 12 days after the first incident, placing it on September the 19th. Early in the morning, a university student on the way home from a karaoke session had discovered a collapsed man covered in blood by the Shibuya Station underpass. The victim had been a university student residing in Shibuya Ward. A 21-year-old named Kanoe Shizuo. He was already dead when he was discovered, but his abdomen had an unnatural, very large swelling. According to the autopsy, someone had performed an abdominal incision on the man, stuffed a newly born fetus inside the man's stomach and stitched it back up. What the fuck? Moreover, DNA test confirmed that the fetus had no blood relation to the victim. The victim was a bachelor and had no relations with any women. It was only online speculation, but it was assumed that the 32-week-old fetus had been removed from its mother's body via C-section. However, the mother's identity, current whereabouts, and even whether or not she was alive was completely unknown. It was possible that the police had already discovered her whereabouts, but if they had, nothing had been publicly revealed. Oof. I averted my eyes from the monitor to keep myself from throwing up. Jesus Christ, talk about nauseating. The culprit was completely insane, and maybe, just maybe these ghastly murders... Hiya. Had been carried out by that girl. Japan is over. I stared at Saratan in an attempt to bleach my eyes. And with that, I somehow managed to stabilize my mental state. I considered taking the meds the doctor had given me, but Saratan did the job nonetheless. Anyway, while that might have been necessary to maintain Neidhart's honor, reading all that gory stuff really fucking sucked. If it's so hard, then you don't have to read it, you silly goose. Though, if you're a super masochist, then I won't stop you, Taki. I just can't bear to see my Taki go through so much pain. So, why don't you just stop? We can just stick to the fun things in life. You can just fap to me like you always do, silly. Oh, how wonderful and caring you are, Saratan. Saratan was the only one who would stay by my side. I couldn't ask for a better waifu. Oh, it's calmed me down. I rested my chin in my hands above the table, watching Saratan smile as I took deep breaths. Ah, my soul had been healed. What a gross individual. I might be able to get through a little more if I kept glancing at her as I read, and so I decided to put that into practice right away. Come to think of it, why had those two unrelated cases both been slapped with the new gen label? Apparently the group dive had initially been treated as a group suicide. But after the man-child incident that had occurred, people online reinvestigated it and discovered the unnatural circumstances surrounding the scene of the crime. Rumours then began to appear saying that the five may have actually been killed and that the suicide label was merely a cover-up. According to the parents and good friends of the five victims, there was no way it could have been a suicide. Then, the mass media had started making connections between the two incidents, starting with where they occurred, Shibuya. Madness explodes in today's youth, the new generation's madness. Sensationalist headlines like that had started popping up everywhere, to my understanding anyway. Then came the third case. The murder case I'd witnessed, dubbed the crucifixion, quote-unquote. The site didn't have as much info on that case, likely due to it having only occurred recently. Just say something find and something. The victim, 56-year-old Otta Hisashi, was a university professor who had been crucified with stakes to the concrete wall of a vacant house. I mean, how would a girl in concrete with or whatever? That was all that had been publicly revealed. I guess she was doing it with a hammer, was she? I suppose you could maybe do it with a hammer, if you were mad enough. Many of the neighbouring residents had claimed that for over an hour after the time the crime was thought to have occurred around 8 PM, they could hear the sound of nails being hammered into something. Yeah, I guess it was being hammered. Even I'd heard the sound. I could hear it even now. A horrible, terrifying sound. On a related note, my connection between the third case and the group dive, or the man-child, had been... no connection between the third case and the group dive, or the man-child had been discovered yet. But with it being the third abnormal incident to happen in quick succession in Shibuya, the crucifixion was naturally treated as another new-gen incident. The police and mass media believed that all the crimes had different culprits, but the predominant opinion online, or rather, what most of the net hoped was going on, was that the crimes either shared a single culprit or an organised group of culprits. There also were many occult-based theories, whispered about online, such as that everything had begun with the earthquake from 2 months ago. 2 months ago, an earthquake with a seismic intensity of 3 occurred, with Shibuya as its epicenter. Although the scale was fairly minor, there were still 8 fatalities, which became a popular topic of discussion. Come to think of it, it was true that the new gen cases had begun after that earthquake. But you could say anything that happened before. This happened after lots of stuff. Because of that, the new gen occultists argued that the 8 deaths in the earthquake should be counted as the first new gen incident, causing a dispute between them and the new gen mainstreamers. Regardless, the entire situation was abnormal. After all, despite the fact that 3 brutal cases had occurred in quick succession, no clues on any of the culprits had been found. Slave card, that's funny. And many online were waiting eagerly for a 4th case. If I wasn't directly connected to it all, I probably would have joined in on the chaos myself. Chaos Head Noah. Posted in a few threads, made a few theories. I could have been waiting excitedly for the 4th incident at this very moment. Damn it. All these assholes were just having the time of their lives, weren't they? Please. Just catch the culprit already. A week had passed since the crucifixion, but neither the demon girl nor the police had made any moves. If they knew I'd been at the scene of the crime, they would definitely come and question me about it, but there hadn't been any signs of that actually happening. Thank God. It looked like I wasn't going to get dragged into this after all. Do you have precognitive powers? That claim Ewa had thrusted at me flashed into my mind. Well, right here is an unaccountable digital picture that can only be explained by precognitive powers. That's why I had to ask. Even though I'd finally started to relax, that feeling of despair came flying right back in an instant. The image sent by Shogun. The data was still on my PC. Yua's claims were no more than delusions she dreamt up. Her deductions were a total stretch, not to mention logically bankrupt. While I might have ended up not asking about it in hospital today, the idea of me doing things without remembering them was completely absurd. Utterly impossible. I mean, nothing like that had ever happened to me before. So the gory image was obviously faked. In that case... Oh.
You should find proof that it's fake. So, let's give the picture a little look-see.
But it's so disgusting. I really don't want to look at it any more than I already have.
If you destroy that bimbo's argument, Taki, you'll be able to go back to your peaceful life. Don't you know? And if you do that, there'll be nothing to fear no longer. So you know what you got to do.
Of course. She was exactly right. Yua had talked to me as if I were the culprit behind the crucifixion, but that wasn't true at all. I mean, I'd seen the culprit's face, as if I'd let Yua put the blame on me after that. So with a gulp, I double-clicked on the folder where the images were cached. Boom. Whoa, okay. I don't think I had a... I didn't have a thing, right? I didn't have an option. Okay, it was the first time in 3 days that Ban Yosuji had set foot in the Shibuya police station conference room. The investigation meeting for the Maru Yamacho crucifixion homicide case had already begun, and Ban was greeted with universal gazes of displeasure for his tardiness. Ban forced a polite smile before bending down to sit. He supposed that it was not quite the right time to reveal that he'd been cooped up in the bathroom with diarrhea. Alright. The Maru Yamacho crucifixion homicide case had been assigned to the Shibuya police station on the morning after the incident. as they were lacking in manpower due to the Cornelius Tower mass suicide case and the Shibuya Station underground and fetus homicide case. Even the third-rate Assistant Inspector Ban, whom the Metropolitan Police Department's investigation division were practically begging to retire, had been called in by the main office. Moreover, as all the incidents had occurred within the Shibuya police station's jurisdiction, it was an unusual situation in which a single jurisdiction station was utilizing 3 special investigation teams. Because of this, operations were made quite difficult with the 3 investigation teams, having access to only one large conference room that they had to alternate between. The mass media was hailing it all as one large case known as New Gen, and there were rumours that the police would combine the 3 investigation teams in order to make a New Gen investigation division, thus solving the issue of manpower. All the detectives found this prospect completely asinine, regarding it as nothing more than an absolute joke. Assistant Inspector, your report. Band Superior Inspector Matsunaga, who was in charge of the investigation team, called out to Ban with a piercing gaze. Ban did not notice this. He simply continued to cool himself down with a handheld fan as he took a moment to recuperate. Assistant Inspector Ban, are you listening to me? The boss is calling you. Ban-san, he's waiting for your report. Oh, this is the policeman that we saw at the school. Hello? The whispers of Ban's partner, a rookie named Suwa, finally got him to realize he was being called. Oh, sorry about that. Suwa will give you the report. You want me to do it? I did tell you to if I wasn't here, so them's the breaks. Hurry it up. Suwa sighed as his superior jabbed him in the elbow, then stood up straight and tall. The analysis of the security camera footage from near the crime scene has finally finished up. Concluded. The recording shows a suspicious individual present at the scene at around the time the crime was likely committed. Murmurs echoed throughout the conference room. The relaxed atmosphere from before had been turned on its head. The other detectives began to take frantic notes in order to not miss a single word of Suwa's report. Considering the situation, it was no surprise that they were so frantic about it. After all, 3 horrific cases had occurred within their jurisdiction in the span of a single month, only one of which was not ruled as a homicide as of yet. Their strong determination to find the culprit, even in the face of their reputations, was only natural. I will show the footage on the projector. As per the instructions Ban had given him in advance, Suwa had display the footage on the projector screen. Is this going to be one of Takumi's visions? Maybe. And it's going to be true. The projector shone an image of the confined, filthy black alley of Maroyamacho. It was night, and there were a few street lights present, so virtually nothing was visible. This is a security camera from a coin-operated parking lot, located from 50 meters from the scene of the crime. About 50 meters from the scene of the crime. The parking lot was only big enough to fit 2 vehicles. It was a tiny plot of land, interposed between 2 buildings, and it was constructed without any real care as well. The scene of the crime was not visible in the footage, not even the path leading to it could be seen. All it displayed was the road that was one farther away from the crime scene. The video had no sound. The time the video had been recorded was graciously displayed on the bottom right hand corner of the screen, 9:34 p.m. According to the testimony of the residents near the crime scene, the sound of nails being hammered could be heard beginning from just past 9 p.m. and ending at around 9:30, which I imagine you already know. Just half an hour to do all those nails. This footage is from 9:34 p.m, which means it was recorded right after the time of the crime. The suspicious individual is shown for around 6 seconds, starting from 9:34:53. No, starting from there. 9:34:53. During that time, they run from the back of the road in front of the parking lot to the front. Ah, there he is, Takumi. Immediately following Sua's explanation, a silhouette appeared on the footage. They seemed to be in a great hurry and ran from the back of the screen to the front. As the resolution was quite poor, not even their gender could be ascertained at a glance, but Ban had already gotten the crime laboratory to analyse that very point. The results of the forensic analysis show that the individual is a man with an age estimated between late teens and early 20s. And early 20s? It was impossible to discern their facial features. Their clothing, however, is fairly distinct, and it was discovered to be the male uniform of Sumai Private Academy, located in Shoto. Also, if you would direct your attention toward the right hand, the image enlarged on the right hand of the suspicious individual, it appeared to be grasping something. Upon playing the footage back in slow motion, we discovered that when he waves his arms while running, the light reflects from the object he's holding, thanks to the lighting present in the parking lot. Now at the good part, Ban took over Sua's explanation. Judging by the shape, there's a possibility that it's the same kind of cross-shaped stake used in the crime. The detectives continued to murmur noisily. The crucifixion culprit may be a high schooler. The proposition was fairly shocked to them. After all, it meant that the new generation madness moniker that the mass media had been pushing could actually become reality. So the closest person we have to a suspect would be this boy, correct? That'd be the case, indeed. Ban stroked the stubble of his jaw. It was a habit of his whenever he felt one step closer to cornering a culprit. He would always reach for that satisfying scraping sensation. That is all. Sua took a deep breath and sat down. You're the worst, sir. I can't believe you robbed me of the best part like that. Ignoring Sua's grumbling, Ban once again burned the image of the high school boy into his mind. So, you've finally shown yourself. Now I've just got to grab onto you and never let go. Whoa. Machine settings. Just gonna delete this. Am I gonna click on it? Sure enough, the image Shogun had sent me was in my cache folder. 168491 JPEG was its name. Obviously, a part of me was still hesitant to even look at it. But we will look at it next time on Borderline Games. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Chaos Head, and I will see you next time. Have a good evening. Bye bye.